Well, hopefully you're in the right class, right? This is understanding and handling WIP inside of Manage. If it's not the right class, you will not hurt my feelings. The door is back there. So how many finance people do I have in the room today? Almost everybody? Okay. Managing WIP inside of ConnectWise is an interesting item because I can't tell you how many people don't even know what WIP is. Now, most of us financial people know, right? So how many people don't know who I am? Have never met me before. Wow. I got a lot of new timers in my classes. So I'm Jeanine Sullivan. I'm a senior business consultant with ConnectWise. I'm a former partner. I'm you. I was Arnie's sixth install. Arnie Bellini came and did my implementation with Linda Brotherton on the phone. And we were a major account at 40 user license. So I've been very blessed that I've been with the company when it was very, very small, and it is what it is today. Are we perfect? No. We strive to be perfect, right? I left my partner at the end of 2006. I had a sick family member and stayed home until she passed. Needed a job. So I reached out to Arnie and said, I want your customer list. And he said, no, I need a job, Arnie. He said, no. So I drove up to Tampa. I lived in Miami. And I said, come on. He said, I want you to come work for me. And my previous boss, they were all good friends, and said, yep, absolutely, it's a good fit. She's my ConnectWise administrator. I'm a former programmer. I was their CFO. So I fit the bill on both sides. But he said one thing is, I don't believe in remote employees. Y'all are lazy. I'll give you a year, but you need to find a way to move to Tampa. My husband works for the federal government. I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Okay, after a year, we'll part friends, and it'll all be good. And I can tell you it's 10 and a half years now, and I still don't live in Tampa. I've moved from from Miami to Fort Myers, but I don't live in Tampa. So having said that, I just want to assure you that WIP can be done in Manage. I understand where the data is, how to get the data to you, and why you need to do so. How many people today are doing accruals? Wow, just 3 of you? Okay, 4 of you? That was a big deal for us as a partner, right? Because we would have anywhere between $300,000 and $900,000 a month in WIP. And you know, your financials take a hit when you've got those kind of numbers out there. So we built some reports. ConnectWise Manage now has some reports in there. There's some new reports coming, but I want to show you where to dive for the details, okay? And please stop me along the way for questions. There's Q&A at the end, but I'd rather just talk through it. All right, so what is WIP, right? WIP, sum of all costs or revenue for the following unbilled items. And some people say it's just the COGS, right? So it's just the COGS or it's just the revenue. I like to look at it both ways because there are times when I might have WIP that is in Manage and has not been pulled over to my accounting package. How many QuickBooks people here? How many GP? Something else. Anybody got something else? What's the something else?
Sage.
Okay. Are you? Okay. Are you international?
No.
You're U.S.?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. I don't have many U.S. partners on.
Yeah, I looking for the license.
Is that why you're looking for it? Okay. I understand. All right. So, you know, people say, why do you want to pull over either the revenue side or the cost side of it? And again, it goes back to how is or are your financials going to fluctuate on a month-to-month basis, right? And we want to make sure that we are accruing for those items properly in the right fashion. All right, so what's our biggest WIP, right? Usually it's labor. Because labor, if you think about it, every month, you still have your labor cost. They still want to be paid. They don't care if you've billed or not. It's not their problem. They've done the job, and they've either fixed the problem that the customer had, or they're a back office person, and they're doing it. Labor is going to be your biggest item. Then we've got expenses, and then we've got product. How many here are more services centered as a business than product? Okay, products? You're 50-50, I know. You're very close, I know. Okay. So take that into consideration, right? Because you're going to have that cost you're going to need to look at. And then we say, why is WIP important? So it affects our profit. It affects our bottom line. And when you have audited financials, when you have the reviews, when you're presenting things to your board or your owners, and they're looking at your financials and they're saying, I have to manage this, right? I'm managing from this document. Hopefully it's not the only document, but they are making critical business decisions based on what they see in that document you give them. Okay? So let's take a look at a sample, very sample, profit and loss statement. And so I'm saying here is, if you look at this, this is my revenue, right? So in January, I've got $675,000 in revenue, but my cost is $125,000, right? And then I'm coming down, now I've got $250,000, but I got $425,000 or whatever it was, and I've got my P&L, and I'm looking at it over a trend. So how many people do trending reports on your financials? A few of you, okay? So you should do those trending reports, because that's going to be another key indicator as to whether or not, A, you need to accrue for WIP, and B, you're doing it properly. Because what you don't want to see, right? You don't want to see this, and I'll go back one. You don't want to see that your gross profitability is falling because this is next month and I'm taking the cost is coming over, but I didn't have the revenue because I recognized the revenue the month before. How many people have these things with their P&Ls? Lots of you, right? That's what we want to try and avoid. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what happened there. So we're saying here, we've got our income, and this is just a very, very consolidated P&L. So it's not going to all the details and all the different cabins. So I've got my income. If you look at my income and my cost of goods sold, we have our gross profit, right? And then we start doing expenses, and then we have our net operating gain, and you'll see, because of the way you're doing it today without the accruals, you're going to have that up and down, right? Make sense? All right. So let's talk about labor cost. The employees still want to get paid. Your salary expense is usually more than 1/3 of your cost, if you look at it from your cost of goods sold on the technicians, right? From there, we need to find that data. So keeping in mind that in Manage, you have that cost field on the member table that is a burden cost. That does not go over to your accounting package. And for those of you that are using Great Plains, I think you're the only Great Plains in the room. Any other Great Plains in the room? Okay. I fixed yours years ago. So Great Plains has a nice feature that it'll take the cost from our time record and post it over. The only difficulty is that we put it in as a weighted cost, and now you're paying payroll and you're doing your workers' compensation and all those other things, and it was double dipping. So there's a couple workarounds if you need that help. All right, so let's take a look. Prior to month-end close, we're going to review the financial dashboard, review the accounting interface. I can't tell you how many times someone says, I billed it all, I posted all of my invoices, and I receipted all of my product, but I'm still not getting cost over. And that's because at the end of the month, they didn't go to the accounting interface to make sure all those last-minute invoices were posted over. Okay? And then review our standard reports, and then there's some really nice report writer reports. And on Friday, this past Friday, a new view was created for WIP that includes both labor and product and expenses. So how many here have used a report writer? Did I stop? No? Okay. So if you look at the new views, it'll be dropped down to your server, I believe, on the next release. You'll be able to do a consolidated report. And I put it in here just to show you what can be done at the end, understanding that we're going to put it there for you. All right, so financial dashboard, right? The biggest thing on the financial dashboard that you have to know and understand is that it is driven, that March 2017, it is driven by the time entry date. So think about that for a minute, time entry date. So if I'm looking at March, these numbers, when it comes to billable and non-billable written off, those are for that month. Why am I important I'm telling you this? One of our processes was, at the end of the month, I would come back here and look at last month to make sure everything was in the invoice column. Because if you see here, if I'm looking at it now, November, and I have to go all the way back to March, I had 1,712.20 billable hours, but I billed and invoiced 1,580.95. So that is unbilled time. And if it's a services time, typically that's time and materials. Or maybe perhaps a small project, right? Some partners use a board for small projects. But that's unrecognized revenue right there. The same thing with projects, and the same thing with products. So it will all show here. However, there's a few things I caution you on. Labor here does not take into account on a rate if you have a fixed fee. The fixed fee does not come into play until you have invoiced it. So I'll show you the report that'll show you the fixed fee balance and how much you're available to accrue. So from here, I also have products. And someone in the last class was like, why? I don't understand why products are listed under services, or they're listed under here. Why can't be their own dashboard? And you can make those custom dashboards in Manage, in the report writer, but I will say this is one of the last screens and we're redoing, and I put that in as a request already to split that out. How many people here just sell products without services? Products without services? You have some, right? Yeah, so are you using sales orders to invoice or using a ticket? Awesome. Awesome. Last class, I had people saying, oh, well, we'll just take it to a sales order and then I'm going to bill it out and it's done. And I'm billing it out ahead of time. And that's the other thing you have to consider with your inventory issue. If you're billing products prior to receiving them, your accounting package is going to, based on if you're average LIFO or FIFO, it's going to pull that data out of the product in your accounting package, especially if it's not available, and it's going to use that cost. And then when you receipt it in ConnectWise Manage, that purchase order, the receipt, it's going to post it over, and QuickBooks will do a recalculation. So if you see items on your P&L and your cost of goods sold, and you should always look at it, and you'll see that item that is a reconciling item. From an accounting perspective, we never like to bill product before it's been receipted. And you can turn that off, right? So, and we can also say we can't go negative. That's a new feature in the database too. All right, so here I've got, yeah.
If you down payment it versus doing a standard, that's okay though, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you down payment it, take a down payment for it, and then when the product is receipted,
Then do the real invoice.
then do the,
Yeah, okay.
that's right, and just apply it and let it take it off. Because in all honesty, if you think about it from an accounting perspective, you're pre-billing for a product that you have not delivered to them. So you're taking recognized revenue when you shouldn't be, because you did not give them a tangible product.
Right, and I accrue for that down payment. The main thing is I want my clock to start ticking in their books.
Yes.
So I'm sending them the invoice.
The down payment invoice. And
Maybe
it-
30 days to pay or whatever, as long as I can get the clock starting ticking, so then I get paid before I have to pay
Right.
the vendor.
So absolutely, so go on your balance sheet, and then when the real invoice goes through, we recognize it. If the ConnectWise, it does it automatically. Another nice feature for down payments, if you think about it from that perspective, is I can give them a down payment invoice, and then I can have a workflow rule that says, when this down payment invoice is paid, notify the warehouse or the purchasing agent, and then they can purchase it. If you really don't order until you have the money in hand. We do have all those workflow rule tokens, okay? All right, so here, if you look at it, if our average bill rate is $125, we look at it over $16,000 that we could have billed for and we did not. So let's talk about the accounting interface. That's always one of the first places I look. The unposted invoices, unposted expenses, and unposted procurement, because that's where you're going to be able to see if you're out of balance or if you have not posted something over. I had a partner, and I know a couple of you were in my session last time, I apologize for this, who called me up. He's a partner as long as I am, and he said, My guys are working, 100 hours, can't keep enough people here. We're really, really busy, but my financials are tanking. What is going on, Jeanine? And I said, well, send me permission to go in the database. I'll take a look. Go in the database. The very first thing I did was I looked at my approval screen for timesheets. And sure enough, there was items that were 100 days old that were not approved. And I said, well, who is so-and-so? And he said, well, she's been on maternity leave for 90 days. And they bill on closed tickets. They bill on closed tickets. So, closed tickets and approved timesheets. So because these timesheets weren't approved, the records never went down to the invoice wizard to be invoiced. So I said, well, don't you do a WIP accrual? And he's like, what's WIP? Obviously, he was not the financial person, but the financial person should have known. And he was very fortunate that all but one customer accepted the invoices that were 100 days old and paid them. That's rare. He had that, he had that relationship with them. So again, I would tell you, look in those unposted items and make sure it's all closed and posted over before you close the month. And then from there, let's talk about the standard WIP report. How many people have run this? Okay. How many people hate it of the 3 of you? 4 of you all hate it. Tell me why. Start over here. Okay. Valid point. Somebody else? Give me a reason why we hate this. Because I hate it too, but I have my own reasons.
I don't remember the exact reason, but we had to do with timing of stuff that we shipped and invoiced on projects, mostly on the project side. It wasn't tying out, so you created your own.
You create your own in the report writer or SQL?
Report writer.
Okay. And you do 2 separate reports, one for product and one for time.
And then I bring them all together. I created some SQL views.
Awesome. So those are some of the things that can be done in the report writer, right? You have a programming background?
Not really, but yeah.
But I'm just trying to let them know that just don't be afraid of the report writer, right?
No.
Just because you don't have a program background. All right, so the way I ran our standard WIP report here says, show me time entry status, everything unbilled. You can also run this by time entries that are ready to be billed, which means the timesheet's approved or the ticket's closed, depending on your setup, right? It depends on how you bill. Partners do a variety of things. Different boards can be different things. So for my managed services or my time materials partners, they a lot of them just bill when the ticket's closed. They don't care if the time record has been approved or not. Right? And other ones say, nope, I have to make sure that timesheet's approved, but I don't care what status the ticket's in. I just bill all time for the month. That's a business decision within your company. Okay? All right, so I look at this and I say, what's the big thing I need to look at? Over 90 days. So I've got $79,000 over 90 days. And then all the different buckets. And then if you look at your fixed fee balances, that's one thing the system is nice to do, is the fixed fee balance says, for this particular project, Great Plains, by the way, I have a balance here of $1,375. However, it's saying I have a total WIP balance of $21,682. I have time in the system that exceeds my available amount of money from the fixed fee. So what does that tell me? Anybody? Right. So it could be a variety of things, right? Under budgeted. We're definitely going to lose money if we're only going to build a fixed fee. However, is it possible that some of that should have been out of scope, and we either chose to eat it, right? It was a new venture for us. We did our best guess. We knew this might happen. Or is it truly something that should have been signed that says, I need more money for this? That's my way of looking at it. And then from there, because you're not going to want to come in here and just say, all right, well, my total WIP balance is, $85,000. I'm going to take that $85,000. I had partners doing that. Well, there's my WIP balance. Why can't I take that? Well, you can't on those particular cases. The other thing is to make sure you tie your down payments and lock them to the project or the agreement or the item. Because that will also, if you have fixed items, it will not show up here in the balance. Does that make sense? Okay. You guys are awfully quiet. Then after lunch and everybody's tired? No? I had a rowdy crowd in the last one. Okay. We're running it based on unbilled entries. So now here, the standard product sold report. How many run this report? 2 of you, 3 of you. How many here don't have our procurement module? Okay, so this might be a little skewed for you because if you're not using our procurement module, that cost field in there can be manipulated, right? Because with the procurement model, the way our products flow is when I pick or ship a product, it locks that cost based on your valuation, whether it's based on serial number, whether it's based on LIFO, FIFO, or average. However, if you don't have it, someone could go in all the way up until the time an invoice is closed and say, here's my cost. And they change it. Can change it, right, wrong, or indifferent, but you can change it. So I run this report and I say, all right, show me everything that is in a status of unbilled, right? I want to filter it down. And then I'm going to say, what is it on? What's the reference table? Is it on a project? Is it on a ticket? Where is it? And it's not a bad little report, but in my humble opinion, it needed a little bit more detail, right? I wanted to know, was it picked? Was it shipped? Is the ticket on hold? I need more to manage that. But in working with just the data we had, this is how we were showing this. Like I said, the new report's going to be awesome. And then from here, product order by manufacturer. So how many of you record your lines of business by type? All my Cisco telephony items are here, or all of my HP stuff goes here on my revenue streams. Just a couple of you? Okay. I do this and I show this to you because I can run that report by manufacturer, because if I'm going to take a WIP accrual, what am I going to do on the revenue side? Right? I can break this down by my business units and say all the different business units get X amount of dollar WIP based on that report. But then within those business units, is it, what type of gear is it, right? Is it software? Is it hardware? Is it an agreement type product? This just gives you more capabilities to classify it correctly on your P&L. How many people just have one bucket they put all the revenue in for product? That's what I like to see. Not one bucket. Questions on this? How many have never seen this report? A lot of people. Okay, so this is a standard canned report in the financial package. This is nothing custom. All right, ship, picked, not invoiced report. So prior to having this custom view that was built, we have what's called the shipped and picked, not invoiced report. And why did we do that? Because if you are, again, with our procurement module, if you have a demand or a drop ship that is tied to that original record from the PO, when you receipt it in, it's going to look to pick and ship it out of manage, right? But on pick and ship, there's no transactional record that goes over your accounting package. So timing is always an issue. We have to be cautious on that. So we had the conversation just a little bit earlier. She's having problems with QuickBooks changing the valuation of their products when it gets over. It could be a timing issue. It could be negative issues. Like I said before, it could be a negative, and then when we receipt it in, it does the recalculation on it, which is always ugly. It could be we're billing ahead of time, and we have nothing in stock, right? So if I have none in stock, and I sell something, QuickBooks has none in stock, it's going to have zero cost. And you can see that when you drill down into the QuickBooks side on the transactional records. Okay, so right here, this is telling me, based on, I did this by location, by warehouse, and then I'm looking at it and saying, by different areas. And I break it down because I want to say, is it in Tampa? Is it in an engineer's car? Is it perhaps at a customer warehouse? And then I look at it and I say, show me everything picked and shipped. What's the unit cost on it? What is it charged to? Because maybe it's just on a ticket, and I need to go find that ticket and find out what's going on with this. Is it serialized? Because if it's not serialized, then I know, based on the way I'm doing my valuation on both the managed side and my accounting package side, that that may, based on timing, have some differences. So I have to be careful there. And then, of course, I'm looking at the unit price and the unit cost. So in this particular case, I might take the accrual for both the cost and the invoice, the revenue side of it. Make sense? Now, if I've already receipted it and I've posted the transactional records over for receipts in the PO, obviously I'm not going to take the cost because I've already done that. Right? I have the accrual side where it's sitting on the balance sheet waiting for an accounts payable item, and it's going to put it in the right bucket for the cost of goods sold. Make sense? Anybody not seen this report before? The standard report? A lot of you not seen this? Okay. All right, so let's look at the report writer report. And this is the big one. So this has the view in it that says, look at all of the data that is unbilled. But I want to then take that data and strip it down a little bit. Because I'm saying here, over here, I also want to look at the down payments, right? I'm also saying I can, and I showed you a broad spectrum of this one. What's the status of the ticket? What's the status of the product? Has the product been picked and shipped, right? It's all on this one screen. What is that fixed fee balance? And oh, by the way, what's the variance? So you don't have to do that calculation again. And you don't have to export the other one to Excel and then try to manipulate the data and perhaps not summarize it correctly, right? And then I've got my projects, and then I've got service time. Anybody want to take a guess as to why service time here is bundled? And it says service time as opposed to a ticket number. Anyone want to take a guess? If you hadn't seen that WIP report before, you wouldn't know. So the way the system does that is it says, I'm going to do an individual record if a service ticket is fixed fee. If a service ticket is fixed fee, it makes it as an individual record. Now, if it's billed, if it's not billed separately and not fixed fee, it's just going to concatenate all of it into that one bucket. And then I wanted to pull in, because we have this new wonderful field coming out for projects, and it's going to be project completion percentage. Today, it's a custom field that we utilize because I needed it for my projects because I need to gauge certain things. But we are writing this nice report for project managers, and that's a different class. But one of the fields that we needed was percent complete. And everybody calculates that a little different, but we're going to have our project managers put that percentage amount on the project, and now I can pull this forward, right? I can pull that forward and say, what's the percentage complete as opposed to how much my fixed fee balance is, so I don't over or under accrue for the month. Because we know that if I have a 6-month project and I've already billed out 55% of it, do I really want to take another accrual? Yes? Okay? Yes. It's a manual field, and I tell you it's a manual field because in our discussions with a very, very large group of partners, and this started last year, everybody considers that percentage just a little different. Is it a percentage complete based on the amount of time that's been put in the system? Is it a percentage complete based on how much balance of what the project dates are? And then I have to worry about out of scope and things like that. So the nice thing is they'll put that percentage in, and the thought process is, because this is still in beta, we're testing it, that on the statuses within the project plan, the individual ticket statuses, we're going to associate a color a color to each one of those statuses. And it'll be the standard red, green, amber, and bronze, whatever the other color is. And that way, when you flip the ticket to a different status, right there on the project plan, you can see which ones are in compliance and which ones might be.
I can see a problem with that.
Uh-huh. Okay. It will absolutely screw up your report, but that's a training issue, right? I understand. There's a lot of things managed can do, right? The different.
One of the problems I see with that is project issues, for example, they're normally non-billable, but they go against the budget project. The customer doesn't care about it.
Well, I would disagree with that. Project issue tickets should be billable because potentially it's an out of scope. It's an issue.
We have allowed scopes as a separate thing.
Uh-huh.
Then they start on budget, but they move into scope.
Okay.
But real issues where our engineers are screwed up, and we carry the liability. Stay in project issues.
Sure.
I want to keep them in the project, but they'll directly affect that sense.
Not with it being a manual. Yeah, absolutely. And so what?
When you're running 200 plus projects at any one time, each one seems better. Manually entering that on keeping on time.
Right.
It's massive.
I understand that, but like I said, partners calculate that percentage based on different things, right? So what I would tell you is on that percentage complete, keep it down to like my projects, I have 5 different percentage completes based on a criteria. And I'm working on some fairly large projects, and so what I did is I took that, I had it typed out and sent it to everybody. You know, if your project managers laminate it so they know when your project gets to be X, they have to manage the projects anyway. They might be pushing a date, they might be entering a ticket. It really is one field. Make it a drop-down field, right? We'll make it a drop-down field so that they can't go in and say it's 22.5%. Well, come on. Right, you know what I'm saying? You know, I know it, I feel your pain, but you know, this is really relying on others, right? So we just need to educate them to do it correctly.
But that field there takes those management fields and the dates.
No. There's the one field on the project plan that's going to say what's the percentage complete. And it's just, all I'm doing here is I'm reading data. It is not basing my WIP on that percentage, by no means. All this is doing is saying that your project plan is 90% complete. So if I'm 90% complete and I've billed nothing, right, then I know perhaps, based on different things, whether or not I should take 90% of the WIP. Okay, yeah, well, I'm not doing any recalculations here based on that. I would never do that because obviously there is that human element on it. And you're right. Project managers like to say, I'm almost done with it, and then 6 months later, I'm still almost done with it. So yes, all right. And so from there, like I said, we can look at the statuses. We can look at where they are. So I broke it down, and I wrote this report, right? This is just an ad hoc report in the system based on the value of time, and then based on the value of products. And what I did was, because the system pulls the products, the date you put it in the system. So think about that. The date that it's added to the system, it thinks it's WIP. So what I said was, I don't want anything on this report that has not been picked or shipped. Because potentially it hasn't even been receipted yet. And if it hasn't been receipted, you can't even bill for it. Yeah.
The system does not mean when it comes in on a one opportunity that day, and if it's not converted until a little bit later, or is it when
it's the conversion date? So it's either on the sales order or the ticket of the project. That's the date in the table that it's going to use for this report. And you can certainly change that if you'd like. What I did is I based mine, it had to be picked or shipped, because that way I know that it's been receipted. Okay? All right. Questions on that? The view is going to be available. You will have to build the report. We are eventually going to put some different WIP reports in there, but we figured we'd get the view out to everybody first. It's going to be V_consolidated_WIP. And then you should have it, like I said, by the next release, by the end of the year. Okay, and then of course I have all my totals. And I just gave you one company, right? So that's the other thing to make sure you understand in the report writer is that if you're basing it only on the first 1,000 records, you're not going to get a full picture. Make sure you put it to all after you've vetted the data. And then it'll be a total at the end. But again, the other thing is to verify. I always took these to Excel anyway, and I would check it off. And then say, okay, these are the ones I want to take for WIP. And then I had an algorithm that said find everything that was verified, and that was my WIP number. Yes, sir?
The percent complete manual engineer, when is that? You think that's in the next release?
That's supposed to be here before the end of the year. Today, all you have to do is put a custom field in. That's how we started doing it. Yeah, just use a custom field and make it a percentage field, and then you put the amount in. Okay? Was there a question?
So we do a really complicated WIP process right now. We have like a secondary database that all of the data goes up. It all predates.
Sorry, I have no poker face.
It's bizarre. So I'm trying to improve that process, but right now we're doing a lot of deferred revenue too.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that if I switch to using down payment instead of normal invoicing, you won't have to continue deferring revenue?
So it depends on your process, right? So what I was saying over here was that if you take a down payment invoice, it's going to put it, if you're going to put it on an accrual basis, you put it on your balance sheet, right? And then when we do our procurement process or our services for our labor, when we bill it, it's going to take that out of the deferred revenue bucket, and it, based on the criteria of is it what service type or what business unit or whatever, it's going to post it over to recognized revenue. Absolutely.
Okay.
You don't have to do any journal entries on that. What's that?
Only when the final invoice.
There's no journal entry on the final invoice. It does it automatically. It does it automatically. And if you have agreements, so let's say you sell block time agreements. Okay, block time agreements. There's a checkbox manually.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet with 40 different GPAs.
Talk to me before you leave tonight, okay? Sorry, I have no poker face. I apologize. That was rude. Yeah, so on an agreement on the setup table, there's a little checkbox at the top that says that this is a reversing revenue item. Have that turned on. Don't do it on the old ones, right? Create a new name, do a new one, because that will really cause some problems. And then when you invoice that, it's going to say, take the value that's here and throw it to my balance sheet. Right? And then as the time is being used, in your case, it's going to automatically take the value of that time record out of your balance sheet and recognize it to the appropriate place. There's no spreadsheets. We've been doing that for years. How long have you been on the system?
I've been here with my company for about a year.
Okay.
I've been using it since 2011.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that functionality has been in existence for years. So if you have a question on that, let me know. And like I told everybody in the other group, you got a quick question or something like that, you're welcome to email me. I know, cover yours back there. Cover yours. If you have a quick question, something like that, just email me. I mean, it's capital letter J, the number 9 at connectwise.com. When I get emails into that account, I know it's coming from a partner that I've given the email address out, and it's not just all the stuff that's going. I can't do an hour, 2-hour type of session, but be happy to walk you through something like that. Okay? Questions? Okay. All right, so what do we do with the data? This was another big item was we run all these reports, we give us all this information, and then nobody does anything with it, right? You can't manage what you can't measure. So you need to make key business decisions, and your owners are, and if you're an owner, you're probably looking at this saying, is this the appropriate data, and why does it keep happening? Is there a broken process? Is it a matter of we need to fix the way that we're invoicing product because we're doing it ahead of time? These are the things that we're going to look for here, because I'm looking at this. Happens to be a project, and this says on the project that I have an expectation of $50,000 for the revenue, and I've already billed $43,625. I've got WIP of $6,375, but oh, by the way, here we are in November, and this should have finished back at the end of October, right? Use these reports to help manage your business. Again, there are certain things that you need to take as caveats. My last class, when I was talking about the financial dashboard, it's a pulse, right? It's not your financials. I can't tell you how many partners say, I don't understand your financial dashboard because I run my QuickBooks P&L, I look at your dashboard, and it doesn't match. I got news for you, it'll never match. Absolutely never match. Why? Because when we invoice a record for time, if it's in January and I bill it in November, the January dashboard is updated, not the November dashboard. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, creating your journal entries. So typically what we do is we just create a journal entry. I just tell everybody, go ahead and put so let's talk about QuickBooks first, and then we'll talk about GP. Because QuickBooks, as we know, is very forgiving when it comes to, is it a debit or credit, what the amount is. Put a recurring entry in. And we're saying, here, give me a reminder 5 days before that transaction date so that if I need to adjust the amount, I can. And oh, by the way, I'm saying it is internal, and there's a checkbox that says, reverse this on the 1st of the next month. So then you don't even have to remember to do that. So I take that WIP accrual, whether it's product, whether it's labor, it's project expenses, and then have it auto-reverse. So you don't have to think about it. I got a lot of faces saying, huh? Questions? Has anybody not seen recurring transactions with reversal? No? Yeah, there's a checkbox for it. It may not be on QuickBooks Online, but there is a checkbox. GP is not as forgiving, right? Because GP, you can do that recurring entry, but once you post it, it's done. And you have to then do another journal entry and reverse it to reverse it again. So keep that in mind and I think Xero's like that also.
Xero's not, but
Sage is, okay. So it locks that transactional record, you can't do anything with it, even with...
that in with entries every month, and all these
Revisions?
Yeah. I'll talk to you later.
No worries. No worries at all. Okay. So yes, this is a QuickBooks screen only because it's the easiest one to show. GP, like I said, is not as forgiving. And then we just do it and we keep going.
On those reports, is there any way to specify that you only want, because we have a couple different types of WIP. We have percentage complete and we have complete and WIP closed. That I can say if the opportunity is greater than 50, I want it to be on this report. If it's under 50, it's on this report.
The opportunity?
Yeah, because it drives off of, because I don't really know what the final bill is going to be. If it's over 50,000, then I do percentage of complete. If it's under that, then I do complete and closed.
So if it's time materials, not fixed fee.
Correct. Well, and so in the case of anything under 50K, I don't even look at it until I don't recognize anything.
So I would tell you yes, but what I would do is I would on the project, there's an estimated revenue button, add it there. And that way you don't have to join the tables all the way back from, it was converted from a sales opportunity and converted from an opportunity. It's in that same view. Okay. It's in that same, and Stephen should pull that. Oh, yeah. Yes, but Stephen should be able to pull that report. Yeah, absolutely. How are we doing on time? Ooh. All right. Key items to report at the end of the month: cost cell report, agreement gross profitability, and financial overview by companies. These are some of the nice reports that I like, but I also build a lot of custom reports. So this is our standard cost cell report that says, this is an item that we purchased or we had in stock. This is the demand it was created under, what ticket, what project, potentially a sales order, but I don't ever recommend invoicing from a sales order. And then what was the invoiced amount and what was the locked cost amount? And then from there, what was the invoice number? What's the PO number? Who's the vendor? Sir?
I might why do you recommend an invoice?
Because if you have our procurement process, right, we have a documented process for best practices that if you look at an opportunity, The sales guys and gals did what they did. They won the opportunity, nothing more to do with it. I did my job, y'all just execute, right? No offense to any salesperson in the room. From there, it goes to a sales order. Sales order is like your quarterback. And I joke with this because my quarterback is terrible this year. But we've been terrible for years. And looks at this and says, is there anything on this order that needs special consideration? Is it a P1 delivery? By the way, have they hit their credit limit? Are they on credit hold? For some reason, this opportunity changed, and I usually get 10% markup, and this one slipped through, and it's a 2% markup. Keeping in mind that as soon as product hits a sales order, a ticket, or a project ticket, it's automatically flowing down for purchasing. So our best practice is turn on the purchasing approvals, convert it to a sales order, vet everything out. Maybe I need to do a down payment. Maybe I need to do an invoice and not a down payment invoice because I'm not going to order it till then. Oh, and by the way, on the sales order or anywhere in the system, I'm going to put on each product my expectation as to when it's going to be purchased. It's a fairly new feature. And it's going to say, it's a large project. I know that the project doesn't start until December or January, or I need to order things in chunks, not all at once. It's affecting my cash flow. So that person comes in and they do all the notes there. When I go into my purchasing approval screen, I created a view, and that view says no sales orders. Because I know that if it's in a sales order status, it's not complete. It is not ready to be purchased. So then it goes to a ticket or a project, and then my project manager or someone can manipulate those dates again if we need to. So that's just our process to make sure nothing gets ordered until it's approved if it's coming from an opportunity, right? And that sales order really says, do I have a PO? Do I have all the documents? Do I have everything that it's a new customer? Wait a second, we didn't get a credit app. Sales is supposed to do that on the front end, right? This is the person that looks at that order and says, what do I do with it? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Financial overview by company. So this is where we're saying, what in the world do you do with this, right? We had one of those before it was in the system, and then we used this, and I looked at the financial overview by company and said, look at that bottom 10%, and if it wasn't a friend of the owner, I did one of two things with them. Raised their rates, or I divorced them. Because they're not profitable to me, right? Unless they're a strategic partner, friend of the owners, we divorced them. So we had a company that was a couple blocks down the street from us, much smaller. We'd say, you know, I think y'all are a good fit. You know, we don't call terminations anymore when people are terminated. We call it right-sized. And we used to right-size our customers and say, you know what? You are the right size fit for this company because you're not for us anymore. But that's how we did business. Anybody run these reports today? A couple? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just want to look at PO loans. This is a great report. This is price. Are you able to filter that?
Not this.
It's the exact same report. Just have only PO. So this shows every line item transaction, whether it's an invoice, whether it's
not on the financial overview one. There is a PO report that says show me everything that's either open or receipted or outstanding. You can do that. That's a different report.
how much is all POs for the month of October?
Absolutely. There is a canned report for that. There's a canned report for that just says show me all POs for the month of October, November, whatever, and then what status are they in, and who are they for?
I won't think about it.
No, that's fine.
Whatever I saw,
And that's fine. Send me an email. I'll send you some screenshots. Where to go? All right. Questions? Concerns? Oh my God, I can't do this. Please shut up. Anything? No? All right. Well, I appreciate. Other questions? Let's get through, sir.
On project history, I want to be able to see within this month how much WIP. Now you pulled it up earlier. fixed fee, but we've gone over $400, I don't want to count that. What's the best way to do that? Because until you invoice it, it won't rip off that revenue, correct?
No, so if you're doing progress invoices, are you doing progress invoices? Make sure the checkbox is selected that says add time records to progress invoice. Because if you don't, they sit in WIP.
If you do that, so if you never run through a progress report, bill for that time.
Yep.
Yes, zeros out of WIP, correct?
Yes, if you attach the time records, yes.
Right, so we're doing that.
Okay.
Then when we get to the point that it's over, we're not going to invoice it again.
Sure you are.
Finish up work.
You're going to do a $0 invoice. You need to remove those records from the system.
Could we do that anytime during the month, or when you want to clear off that WIP?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Then how do you deal with, we were talking about out-of-scope projects,
Mhm.
out-of-scope work on projects?
Yep.
How does that affect it, or how do you separate that from the?
So I would take the phase and make the phase bill separately, and you can do it either as fixed fee time materials or override rate, or do not exceed, and just have it billed separately.
Then when you run that kind of true-up
Mm-hmm.
progress invoice, will it fill out that out-of-scope, or will it be
It's entirely up to you. You can say bill it as open, or only bill on close, that one little phase. So I can have a project, that's fairly new too. I can have a project that's got 9 phases, all billed differently, and I'm going to say this one can only be billed when the master project's closed, right? But this one is a training. I need this to be billed as I go along because it's time materials. So you can manipulate that data any way you need to. Okay? Anyone else? Sir? Mm-hmm.
Trying to find stuff that's sitting there, it's over 30, 60, 90 days. Currently, I go through and I do a
With the new report writer, with that view, you'll be able to do it. I showed it in detailed, but you're going to want to run it in the condensed view, and then you'll be able to drill into the company names. The best way for you to do that today would be go on the financial dashboard. You know it's something that's 90 days old, right? Go back that 90 days, sort the dashboard by company, and then click on unbilled, and then it'll list your companies that are unbilled. And then you can drill even back further and say, here's that time record. Open that time record and click on the charge to, which takes you to the ticket number, and opens up that ticket, and you can look at this ticket and say, why is this thing still open, right? We're waiting on the customer for 90 days. I'm going to close this so I can bill it, if that's what your billing cycle is. Okay? They'll probably have to give you, rights to that. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome. Anything else? All right, there is the survey online. I know financial classes are always interesting, so be kind. We do love feedback, positive, negative. If you can help me out with the survey, it would be nice. Thank you. And then if you have your questions, you can come up and we'll talk. Thank you.